chains or had to make you pick cotton to enslave you. See, society is all about power games and dynamics. Who has the power? Who keeps the power? It's all about skewing the playing field in such a way that those with power have more power, and those who have no power have even less power. Because power equals wealth. And why is all this happening? Fundamentally, because the ego wants to survive. And the ego wants to maximize its survival at all times. People think like, well, but once you're rich, you don't need any more. You don't understand. The ego is insatiable. There's never a point where the ego gets to where it says, okay, now I've got enough money, I've got enough power, I don't need any more. Let me try to share more with others. No, never. The ego never gets there because the ego is always paranoid. It's always feeling threatened. When you have $1 billion company, all that happens is that now you're just paranoid about you losing your company. So you're fighting for the survival of your $1 billion company, even though you have billions of dollars, just as much as you were fighting to pay your electricity bill. Nothing ever changes for the ego. The ego is always chasing for its own survival. Always. Unless it's completely dissolved. Government has literally domesticated you, turned you into a domesticated animal.
That's the state, the cat.
Now, this wasn't done by some scheming masterminds as a form of a conspiracy theory, but rather most of this just happens unconsciously. This is just the structure of society. It happens spontaneously. Society is deliberately designed to be unequal. Grossly unequal. It's not something that just happens by accident. It's by design. Egos at the top try to maximize their survival. Those egos, once they get power, they try to reinforce that by maintaining the status quo of this pyramid. Defending the status quo. Not only are the people at the top doing this, but actually the slaves at the bottom are brainwashed and programmed to do it as well. That's what makes it so devious. Really, your enslavement starts by the enslavement of your mind.
The enslavement of
your
body.
culture feeds you as you're growing up, which you are completely ignorant of, which you just take completely for granted as normal, as just the status quo, is just how things are and how things have always been as tradition. And then you just end up being a zombie who defends that tradition, that status quo. Oftentimes, you're going to defend that even if it's against your own survival agenda. Simply because your mind is so closed and so inflexible that it's unable to actually rewire itself to look at the world in new ways. This is how indoctrination works. This is a large feature of what education does. Our education system is a critical component of this, which is why it's so difficult to reform the education system, because actually it's there to enslave your mind. It's a vehicle for propagating culture. And culture is just a set of ideas and concepts that shape your view of your reality, which is supposed to make the entire culture survive. Not you individually, but actually the entire culture. You see, the culture collectively is like a superorganism. And in the same way that you don't care if a few cells on your pinky get killed, as long as you survive, well, the culture doesn't really care what happens to you so long as the whole culture survives. Society is a house of cards held together by lies and massive self-deception, collective self-deception. Society is there to create a sense of solid reality. It's like a mass hallucination. And it perpetuates this with all sorts of ways, very subtle, sneaky,
society,
tricky ways.
the state,
that take you
political,
years to study and to fully appreciate. Wage slaves are used to serve the elite, the people at the top of the pyramid, and to serve all their survival needs. What people don't understand is that wealth is a relative thing. You might think, well, wealth is just me sitting on a pile of gold or something. That's not really what wealth is about.
No.
For one person to be wealthy in a society, other people have to actually be poor. Because wealth is relative. Wealth is not about just having a bunch of paper bills or numbers in your bank account or bars of gold. Wealth is also about power, relative power disparity. Because if everybody in society was completely equal in their power, there would be no disparity in power or in wealth, let's say, in this utopian scenario. And then what would happen is that one person couldn't force the other person to do something. For me to be able to force you to do something for me, like to clean my toilets that, let's say, I don't want to clean, or for you to feed me grapes while I'm lying on a couch, and for you to wave a palm frond over my head to keep me cool in the summer.
The dominant.
For that to happen, I must have more power than you, because otherwise you would never do it if we were equal. Because how would I make you? If I told you to feed me grapes, you could say, well, why don't you feed me grapes first? And then we'd be at a stalemate. Neither one of us would feed the other grapes, unless we just kind of both wanted to do that. See, so for a billionaire, the whole appeal of being a billionaire or a millionaire is precisely the power disparity that you have. It's all the stuff you can do, or that you can get other people to do for you, without needing them or being able to force them to reciprocate. That's what wealth is fundamentally about. See, it's relative.
Yeah.